Hello, beautiful ones, and welcome to another episode of Taking Time to Heal. So, firstly, thank you for bearing with me last week while I was off. We went to a campervan festival, actually. For those of you that don't know, we have a campervan. We enjoy our campervan immensely. We tend to be out most weekends, and we just had a really lovely weekend away with a group of friends at a campervan festival filled with lots of silliness, filled with lots of indulgence, and just really good fun, just what we needed. So I hope you're doing something beautiful this bank holiday weekend, but I wanted to drop in and share the final HUNA Principle with you. And this HUNA Principle is a beautiful reminder of how we can deny ourselves access to certain, not just certain like modalities, certain treatments, certain avenues when it comes to our spirituality and our holistic well-being. But it really is a beautiful reminder of how, if we're not careful, our belief systems can become this little cage that we can get lost in. And that HUNA principle is pono, which basically means effectiveness is the measurement of truth. Now, this really resonates with me, and I think one of the main reasons this really resonates with me is because I don't know about you guys, but I know that certainly my 20s was a time where I felt like I had this really clear structure in my head of what was, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this, what was kind of truth, what made sense, what was real is the word I want to use actually, what was real and what wasn't. And then, in came my health conditions, and if I'm honest, it made me see a few of the limitations to Western medicine that I just hadn't seen before, because I'd had no reason to. I'd had, this belief system in my head that Western medicine could answer pretty much all the questions. It could deal with most of the conditions. Obviously, there were a few things we still hadn't figured out. So, we're not quite there yet with many conditions. But I had this real strong belief that Western medicine could probably deal with issues that I was likely to face. And I was certainly one of those people that, if I had anything serious, when I say serious, anything that didn't go away after like a couple of weeks, then I would go to my GP, and my GP would, go through the process, give me what I needed. I'd take that away happily, and lo and behold, it would work. And then thank you, universe. And then what happened with my arthritis? For those of you that don't know all the background, I won't go into it too much today, but just a couple of points that are useful to know in context of this talk today is when I first started getting symptoms, I think I was about 29, probably 29, maybe 28. Let me think about this. I should be able to tell you because I can work it out from my son's age. So I just had my son when I started experiencing problems. And my son is now 10. So I must have been around the 30 mark. So just coming out of my 20s. And we'd just moved house, and I just had a baby. We were doing it all at once in typical kind of Holly and Manny style. And after it was like the day after moving house, my knee began to swell up. And prior to this, I'd had problems with my back, I'd had problems with my hips, and I thought I'd just put something out during labor. So I'd only just had my son, so I thought perhaps I'd carried him during pregnancy, or twisted funny during pregnancy when everything was a little bit bigger and looser as well. That's the other thing. And my knee began to swell the day after moving house. And I just presumed, like you would, that I had banged it during the move. I'd done something that had inflamed it somehow. Perhaps I twisted it. I didn't really know. But I went to the doctors thinking I should probably get this checked out, because it wasn't going down after like a few days. In fact, the pain seemed to be getting worse. And I remember going to my GP, and he said, "Oh, you might have an infection in the joint. So let's do some blood tests. We'll put you on some anti-inflammatories, and we'll put you on a course of antibiotics just to be safe." And so I went through that process, and nothing came up on the blood tests around infection or anything like that. But my inflammation markers were raised. And he said, just continue with the course of antibiotics, continue with the anti-inflammatories, and we'll see if anything changes. So fast forward 2 weeks, nothing had changed. Back to the GP. And then it was, okay, so let's try steroids. So I tried steroids for a bit. They helped a little bit. Not the best thing to be taking most of the time, not the greatest thing for you. But I took the steroids. I just wanted to get well. I had work to do. I just moved house. I've got 3 kids. I was just like, give me a solution, right? Anyway, so they helped a little bit, but not much, and it would just keep coming back. And this would go on for months. So months and months down the line, we're still struggling to figure out what it was. They'd tested, they'd taken blood tests, and none of the blood tests were showing anything other than my inflammation markers being raised. And in the end, I must have visited this GP probably 10, maybe even more times than that. And in the end, I was in the lucky position that I had cover through work, which allowed me to access private medical care. And I remember saying to my GP at that point, where do we go from here? What's the next step? And he said, to be honest, I'm kind of out of options. And I was like, oh, okay. Okay, right. I said, I have private medical care through work. Would that be useful? And he said, yes, I think you should do that. And I can remember this period, and the whole period before I got a diagnosis went on for a good year. And during that time, I started to see, oh my gosh, Western medicine doesn't have all the answers. And it was this real kind of light bulb moment for me, because I'd always been like super logical, super practical. As much as I did have like a real part of me that always felt quite spiritual, I would say. I'd grown up, I'd gone to 2 Catholic schools. I had I'd practiced different forms of spirituality in my teens. I'd always loved a good mind, body, spirit event. And at that point, I had to really start putting my trust towards some of these more holistic therapies. Now, I had already been trying things like I'd gone to see several different chiropractors because, I thought maybe there's something out of alignment here. I'd seen an osteopath. I'd seen a number of different therapists to try and get to the bottom of what was going on. And it was actually through a different avenue that I started to create, or not create, but find solutions that were helpful for me. So during that time, over that space of the year of not getting a diagnosis, of being postpartum, of I was going back to work. My husband was staying at home with our child because that's what we'd previously agreed prior to me getting ill. And I was trying to manage all of these things, and I was in immense pain. It was getting worse. It was getting to the point where I couldn't manage the stairs at home. I was having to go up the stairs on my bum. I couldn't lift Ethan, our son, out of his cot. I had to get my husband to pass him to me because it had already started to spread into my shoulders and my neck. And it had become really debilitating by this point. It was affecting my sleep. I was lucky if I was getting an hour or two sleep a night because nothing was taking the pain away either. And prior to all of this, I should mention, I was the sort of person that didn't like taking paracetamol. Funny enough, we were talking about paracetamol on our new moon circle yesterday in the membership. I won't go into it, long story, but for those of you that know, you know. But prior to this, I hadn't liked taking any tablets that I could, unless I could really help it. I just had this sense that I'd rather not put chemicals into my body unless I really, really had to. Fast forward during that year, and I was happily taking anything, right? It was like, just give me something to relieve some of this suffering, please. But most of them were actually, I don't remember finding anything that really took the pain away or the inflammation away. And I was taking anti-inflammatories like they were M&Ms just to take that tiny edge off, to make sure that I could at least kind of get up in the morning, kind of get myself to work. I did a lot of working from home that year. Luckily, my employers were just so supportive and really kind. And I just want to acknowledge that because I know that's not the case for everyone. And it makes such a difference to know that people have your back. But even still, that time, I remember feeling like I was just letting everyone down. I was letting my children down because I couldn't move and I couldn't do the things I'd previously done with them. We were the sort of family that went ice skating and rollerblading and, lots of movement. And all of a sudden, I couldn't even walk around Tesco. It was really bad. And I decided that during that time I could start to see how my mental health just started to decline. My ego was just dissolving. Like, I no longer recognized myself. I no longer could identify who I was anymore, because all of the things I'd attributed to who I was, this active mum, this person who loved to work. I loved my job. I loved the people I worked with. And all of a sudden it felt like I couldn't do a lot of that, and I no longer felt like me. And I could see this was starting to affect me. This was starting to affect my relationships because people around me could watch this happening. It was starting to affect just the way that I interacted with my life. It became this real chore. Everything felt so difficult. Everything felt so hard. And I could feel that depression starting to sink in. But again, I wasn't the sort of person that particularly liked taking tablets. And so the doctors, and by this point I'd kind of already lost a little bit of faith in doctors. No offense to doctors, you do an amazing job, right? You do an amazing job. That was just where I was at that point. But I saw this leaflet for a meditation course, and many of you know this story, and I went on this meditation course, and that led to a Reiki course, and that led to Ayurveda, and lo and behold, I started to find answers. I started to find things that would work. But Reiki in particular, I remember when I came, like, people had told me about Reiki in the past, and I didn't know a lot about it, but there was a really big part of me that just wrote it off as a little bit woo-woo, right? A little bit out there, pseudoscience kind of. If I'm really honest, these were the opinions I had, and I thought, well, there can't be anything in that. And it wasn't until I was in the meditation course and I experienced an energy meditation, and I remember thinking, wow, what was that? And it kind of shook me a little bit. I was a bit like, oh, I don't know what I've just experienced. But all of a sudden, I became particularly aware of this real kind of subtle realm and the subtleties to our body, the subtleties to our system, the nervous system. All of these things just became louder and more obvious to me. And so began my Reiki journey, and it really was this kind of, I had to really consciously work to not let my mind shut down this option. I had to really work to not let my mind and ego take over in terms of writing it off and thinking, this doesn't make sense, this is too woo-woo, this can't be real. And thank God I stuck with it, because Reiki is now one of my most favorite modalities. I continue my training. I went to level 2 and level 3 and level 4 eventually, and became a Reiki master teacher. And I'm so grateful for that part of me that was willing to just shut down the ego for a little bit and to consider there might be something in this. There might not, right? But there also might be. And that's what this HUNA Principle is reminding us of. Effectiveness is the measurement of truth. So this is a really lovely invitation to start wondering or considering or contemplating about how the things that you feel you know to be true might be holding you back from the thing that might help. And I think this goes for everything in life, right? This doesn't just apply to holistic wellness. We now know, right, that the things that the rishis and the yogis were talking about, thousands of years ago, we are now only just proving in Western medicine. The way the nervous system works, the way that it's linked to these, well, we could call them energy centers. These energy centers also align to the major glands that actually produce chemicals in the body. So the rishis and yogis seem to have this better understanding of the most subtle form that goes on for us. And if we're not careful, we could have wrote that off. And actually, most of the science world did for a really long time, right? We wrote off the idea of things like balancing the nervous system for not just like our mental and emotional well-being, but our physical health. We now know that our physical health is affected by our environment, by our stresses, by the way that we perceive things, by the level of anxiety we hold in our bodies, by our fight, flight, freeze, fawn response. We know all of these things have a major impact on our physical health as well as our mental and emotional health. We know trauma that we've experienced still remains in the body, in the muscle memories, and this is why, well, we don't know how it's stored in the body just yet in science, but what we do know is that people that have experienced trauma are more likely to suffer with, I don't like the word suffer actually, let me change that word, but are more likely to experience certain health conditions, particularly autoimmune conditions. But I think this also is a beautiful invitation for us that are in the holistic world, the holistic health world, in the well-being world, in the spiritual world, to remind ourselves not to write off the other side as well. So I remember when I first started trying to grow a business online, and there was a really good reason I wanted my business to be based online. Initially, that had not been my intention, but then the pandemic happened. And I saw this opportunity to support people that might be struggling during that pandemic time with the tools that I knew really helped me. So meditation, Reiki, Ayurveda, all of these tools had helped me immensely, not just physically, but in terms of my mental and emotional well-being. I was so much calmer. I was so much more peaceful. I no longer, I'm not saying I no longer experience stress. Of course I experience stress, but through these practices, I just felt so much safer in my body. And during that pandemic, I was hearing these stories of just how challenging people were finding the being shut in their homes, especially people that were single or people that were in unhealthy relationships or relationships that weren't very nurturing or kind. And I saw this opportunity to, oh my gosh, I could share some things here that would really help people. And through that process, I realized I knew absolutely nothing about marketing my business in a way that was going to resonate with people, in a way that actually would make sense to people. Because I'd been, for that probably 5-6 years in my little holistic wellness bubble, and had probably become far too comfortable with many terms that others wouldn't understand, or just presume people knew things. And I didn't know a lot about how to put my business out there and say, hi, I'm here, if you need me, come in. I didn't know how to do that in a way that actually was going to be effective and attractive and highlight what I actually provided in a way that made sense to people. And so began my journey into understanding how to market an online business and market my services And I know a lot of what I learned, I ignored. A lot of what I learned, I didn't want to apply. But there was also this really big part of me, this ego had developed around this spiritual element of me. So I'd exchanged one ego, the ego that was very practical, very logical, knew all the answers, trusted in science and Western medicine completely. And I'm not saying I don't trust in those things, because a lot of the times I do. If I break my leg, I'm going to hospital. I'm not going to the local shaman. I'm going to the hospital. So it's not that I don't have faith, and I just want to highlight that. But I'd exchanged this ego of logical, practical, trusting in science to the other way, very spiritual, very into the holistic side, perhaps even becoming a little bit stuck in that mindset, a little bit stuck in this is the only way now. This kind of, it became a bit of a prison in itself. And it also became this real kind of, it did become this kind of way to feel better than other people. And that sounds horrific and awful, but I want to be really honest in that, because we need to accept those shadow elements as much as we accept the parts of us that are beautiful and gorgeous and nourishing. So there's part of me that was like, oh, I'm doing all of these things that other people can't be bothered to do, not necessarily acknowledging the fact that it was only because I was in a really dire situation it probably started, that I started on that path. But, I was meditating every day, I was doing my Reiki, and it does give you a bit of an ego boost to think, oh, I'm doing this thing, and the thing that really surprised me was I was being disciplined around it. And most of you know I am not someone that particularly buys into discipline. I don't particularly even like that word. I find it restrictive and limiting. But I'd been consistent in my practices, and that had given me this really lovely ego boost. But in itself, that had put me in this bit of a cage where I had begun to believe things like marketing wouldn't be necessary for my business, because I could just call it in from the universe. I do use Reiki to manifest. I do use spiritual practices to call in that which I desire. But I'd been missing this point that actually what we desire also requires us to take action, also requires us to do legwork, to actually do what is required. And so finally, I decided, okay, I need to figure out what I'm doing here. I need to figure out how to put myself out there, how to market my business, how to do what needs to be done. And I gave myself this little challenge of, well, I'm going to give it a period of time. I think at that time it was, I'll give it a good year, and I will just see what unfolds during that time. And if I find these marketing techniques are not working, or don't feel good, or feel yucky, or feel manipulative, all of the things that kind of went against my values, if I found that they didn't work in harmony with me and also didn't yield results that felt good to me, then I would let them go, and I would just go back to pure spiritual marketing, i.e. just me on my meditation mat, listening to the universe, listening to the guidance it brought. But I should say that actually this direction of going down the route of looking into marketing, looking into positioning, looking into how do I sell something, because it felt horrible and it felt ugh. And I felt like I was being pushy and all of those things that didn't feel good in my body. It was through a spiritual practice that I received the guidance to, look, you really need to look into this. You really need to figure out what you're doing, rather than just relying on us, relying on your spirit team, because we can only do so much. And so that journey began. The reason I share that is because I think it is really dangerous that as we go into our spiritual practices, as we go into practices like holistic well-being practices, we need to be careful that those things don't in itself become a limitation, that those things don't start to define us, that they don't start to become our whole personality, right? And I'm saying this laughing because I had this moment yesterday and I was telling my daughter about it because it really made me chuckle. It's new moon at the moment, and we had our new moon circle yesterday. But before new moon circle, I decided I'll go take the dog for a nice walk, wear the dog out before the workshop so he doesn't feel the need to contribute all the way through. I say workshop, it's new moon circle, not a workshop. And I'm walking down the road and with my dog, and I've got my baggy yoga pants on. I didn't bother putting a bra on because I couldn't be bothered and it was too hot. I had my Tree of Life necklace on. I had my earphones in because I was listening to like this meditative dance, not dance, more meditative trance playlist where it was like repetitive mantra. And I'm listening to this, I'm walking through the woods and, occasionally taking my earphones out to just listen to the birds and take in the sights. And I'm there and there's a few things that I foraged while I was out and about. And I just had this moment of, oh my gosh, Holly, you've turned into such a cliche. And I just had to have a bit of a giggle to myself. Because if we're not careful, right, our spiritual practice, our modalities can become this sense of identity. And that in itself is, as I mentioned, dangerous, because if anything ever changes around that, then we feel like we lose ourselves. But the other thing is we can start to push away anything that doesn't align to the cliche of who we believe we are. And so it's super important that we don't become our own prisoners, that we don't create this little prison inside of ourselves of I'm this, I'm not that, I like this, I don't like that. But allow room to experiment, allow room to try, allow room to play with something new and see how it fits, see how it feels without necessarily believing in it, without necessarily like buying into something, but just allowing ourselves that curiosity. And I think this is beautifully also kind of talked about in the teachings of the Buddha, and in Zen, where we talk about this kind of, can we go into each moment as if it's new? Can we go into each moment just with presence, without feeling like we have to bring our sense of identity into it, without feeling like we have to bring in all of these rules that we've made up in our heads around what's real, what's not real, what's true, what's not true, and allow ourselves to have that open mind and open heart. And we know this, right? When we can do that, when we give ourselves permission to experience that, we might come across things and find things that work for us, or our lives, our relationships, our careers, our business, without being stuck into whether it aligns to this sense of identity that we ourselves have created. And I am so grateful for that Holly that was willing to kind of park that spiritual ego for a little bit and learn from marketing experts. And when I say marketing experts, I there was a part of me that tried many different experts, many different teachers, because I have to really connect with someone. And there wasn't many out there that I really connected with. And I did, if I'm honest, I probably spent, well, I know I did, I spent thousands during that period trying to figure out how I could make this work. But I'm really grateful to that version of me that did that, because it did work in the end. Once I figured out what I wanted to do and how I wanted to deliver that, and what was the best way to share that with the world in a way that kind of resonated with me, made sense to me, felt like it came from a place of love and service, but also made sense to the people I was talking to. I don't believe actually that I am the best communicator all the time. So actually having these structures, these things behind me, this years of marketing experience, there's been an industry for years, right? So it would be bizarre of me to not make the most of those lessons that other people had learned, because I decided it didn't align with my ego. But I did, and I'm really grateful I did. I'm really grateful I could park that part of me that wanted to believe I was above that, that wanted to believe that that those things were bad or wrong. That was another judgment I'd placed on that sort of thing, because I had become very aware of just how consumeristic we were as a society, and the bizarre things that we care about. And I remember sharing a story once on a live that I'd literally just finished watching a program, and there was this advert for eye cream, and it was like the best-selling eye cream. And I remember thinking, God, it's crazy, right, that people will spend all of that money on eye cream, yet at that time I was struggling to get clients to actually help them how to figure out how to improve the internal part of their system rather than just what they looked like on the outside. And the irony is, when you look after the inside, the outside looks better, right? But no, people didn't want that. Or that was my feeling at that time, was people would rather buy an eye cream than actually do the work that would allow them to feel better on every level, physically, mentally, emotionally. But I digress. But my point being that this is a really useful principle to check in with every now and then when you're writing things off, Or when you're buying into things, right? Am I buying into this because I want it to be true? Am I buying into this because someone else believes it to be true, or it worked for someone else? But at the same time, what am I writing off because I don't believe it fits in with this identity that I've created? You know, perhaps like me, you have become a little bit cliche and occasionally catch yourself and see the funniness of it all. But a gentle reminder today to not let the chicken, no, I was going to say, not let the chicken come before the egg. I'm not sure that's the phrase, but to not let your sense of identity choose that which you're willing to explore, and write off the things that might actually be useful to you. So this is your self-inquiry for today. What are the things that you are perhaps avoiding, perhaps saying no to, or saying yes to, even though you're not seeing the effectiveness, or you're not giving yourself permission to experience the effectiveness of something because it doesn't seem to fit in with your belief system or your sense of identity or what you believe to be true about life, this world, what's real, what matters. And on that point, you know, over the coming weeks, I will be sharing many topics with you that the truth is, the likelihood is there's going to be a real part of you that thinks this can't be real, this can't work, this doesn't make sense. Hopefully it makes a little bit of sense, but you know, it doesn't make sense in terms of what you may have been taught or grew up believing, or science tells us is true. But as we go through the rest of the episodes, I invite you to see if you can hold this principle lightly in the back of your mind. Can I allow myself to just experience the effectiveness of something before making a judgment of it? Can I just allow myself to be open-minded and open-hearted enough to just give something a go without predetermining the result I'm going to receive? Now, I can tell you, over this journey, I have experienced things that my little logical mind cannot make sense of. It can't figure it out. And I would say Reiki is probably the biggest one in this category. Excuse me. Because Ayurveda, I think it makes sense on so many levels. We can look at that logically, you know, we can understand the different patterns that different nutrition holds, that movement holds, because we feel that, right? We notice that already. But sometimes with practices like Reiki or shamanic journeying or working with the dreamscape and dream world, working with manifesting, some of the energy work, you know, on paper, this shouldn't work. Your logical brain will want to write it off. It will tell you it's nonsense. It will tell you that I'm talking rubbish. I invite you to see if you can just park that voice as we go through the rest of this journey. And if you are already very open-minded or a little bit open-minded and want to grow that, and you want to experience more of the spiritual realms, you want to experience more of your internal world, you want to experience more tools and techniques to help manage your system holistically and your life, right? Because our wellness isn't just what's going on in here, it's also what we've created out there. But if that is where you're heading, if that's the path you're on, if that is everything that lights you up, or a little bit of what lights you up right now, then I would invite you to join us inside the Medicine Woman Collective. It is our membership space where we explore practices together. We try them out. We experience different things like shamanic journeying, energy work, making holistic medicine, using things like herbs, using nutrition. We explore how different movements feel in the body in our classes, like intuitive mindful movement. If that sounds right up your alley, I would love to invite you to join us. You actually have access to a free trial, and I will put the link in the show notes. But for now, I'm going to love you and leave you to enjoy your August bank holiday weekend, and I will be back next week sharing another episode which I hope will give you some tools to take into your healing journey and inspire you to take the time to heal. Take care, and I will see you soon.